welcome back to Lockdown Universe, home of the bizarre, peculiar, and unheard of stories of UFO legend and paranormal world. Welcome back, welcome back. Happy to be back. Hopefully you guys are doing excellent and taking care of yourself. Electrify yourself. Let's go. What are we doing today? We are talking about crazy operations that the government undertook back in early 70s. Operation Starfish Prime. Yeah, I know. I want to make sure I got it right. I don't want to say chocolate starfish or something like the Limp Bizkit album. Operation Starfish Prime. I had not heard of this actually, and it's pretty weird, and I think you're going to enjoy it. So, what is Operation Starfish Prime? Well, it's actually part of a larger operation that took place called Operation Dominic, which was a series of tests that began in 1962 in response to the Soviet announcement that they would end a 3-year moratorium on nuclear testing. Okay, so this isn't all just nukes. It's going to be talking about aliens and stuff like that too. So the reason I bring this up is because we went to the moon in 69, right? We had nukes since what? Early 40s. So they were interested in finding out more about nuclear capabilities. But remember, we took down an alien ship, 2 alien ships in 47, in Aztec and in Roswell. So we were starting to gather information from the alien that survived out of the 3 in Roswell. They started to tell us about nuclear testing and how it's affecting like the space-time continuum. But apparently, it didn't matter what they said, because in 62, we decided to nuke space. Okay? So if you stayed this long, you're going to be in for a treat. So we decided to nuke the Van Allen asteroid belt. Why? Well, let's find out. Okay, so Operation Starfish Prime was a nuclear high-altitude test conducted by the U.S. as a joint effort of Dick Cheney's favorite place, the Atomic Energy Commission, and the Defense Atomic Support Agency, which I don't think exists anymore. It was launched from the Johnson Atoll, which, let's find out where the Johnson Atoll is at. It's, where the hell is this? The North Pacific Ocean. Oh yeah, way out there. So they don't care about, anybody in the North Pacific Ocean. And it was the largest nuclear test conducted in outer space. Okay, largest nuclear test done in outer space. Now remember, we did send a nuke, wasn't it, to the moon to see if they had any water there. Which obviously that was an undercover, alien war that we launched a nuke at. But let's take a look a little bit deeper. So it was the largest nuclear test conducted in outer space, and one of 5 conducted by the U.S. in space. So a Thor rocket carrying a W-49 thermonuclear warhead designed at Los Alamos, which is where Bob Lazar worked, contained a re-entry vehicle and was launched about 900 miles west of Hawaii. The explosion took place at an altitude of 250 miles and had a yield of 1.4 MT. I guess that's TNT equivalent. So the explosion was at 11 p.m. Hawaiian time. So that's the first part of Starfish Prime. There's Operation Fishbowl. Let's say Fistbowl. Fishbowl. Starfish test was one of 5 high-altitude tests that were grouped together as Operation Fishbowl within the larger Operation Dominic in a series of tests in 1962. So this is interesting because there was a series of these tests: Yucca, Teak, Orange, and Argus shots that were basically just the precursors that did not work at all. They needed a strong yield, and they wanted to see what they could explode in space. Could they break through the Van Allen asteroid belt? So the Starfish test was originally planned as the second in the Fishbowl series, but it was the most powerful. So There's actually a picture of it. There's a frame from the Starfish Prime nuclear test in space, shows the explosion. It caused an electromagnetic pulse that was far larger than expected. So much larger that it drove much of the instrumentation off scale and causing great difficulty in getting accurate measurements. The Starfish Prime electromagnetic pulse also made those effects known to the public by causing electrical damage in Hawaii, which was 900 miles. 900 miles from the detonation point. Think about that. 900 miles is a huge distance in America. Was America got like 3,000 miles from like New York to LA? So it could cause that much damage in the air. And we always know that military weapons can cause much more damage in the air than they can cause on the ground. But think about that for a second. If you lit something in, New York, it could have an effect all the way to like Chicago, maybe past. That's wild. Um, so it knocked out 300 street lights. It set off numerous burglar alarms, damaging telephone company, microwave links. The EMP damage to the microwave links shut down telephone calls in Hawaii, period. A total of 27 small rockets were launched from the Johnson Atoll, and they obtained some data for the Starfish detonation. This is really wild because I've talked about a lot of these different experiments, ranging from them releasing like a gas with bacteria in it in the New York subway to test to see if there was going to, how far a bacteria would travel if there was ever going to be a biological attack on New York City, right? They did it in San Francisco too. And some people did get sick. It wasn't supposed to make people sick, but they were looking at it through like the wastewater and things like that. Now, when you release a nuclear weapon, even in outer space, it caused problems here on Earth. What's interesting is that it doesn't matter how far away it is. I mean, well, at least it doesn't matter for it to be 900 miles away because it caused problems for people as well. Did you know John Wayne got cancer because he was shooting a film that was too close to Nevada when they were doing experiments with nuclear weapons? Yeah, that's a true story. So, a few military ships were actually positioned in the South Pacific Ocean near the Samoan Islands, and they were monitoring Soviet Union exploration with nuclear weapons as well as a Soviet scientific expedition ship. And so they were trying to make sure that nobody else knew about it, but they actually damaged five satellites. So when you think that they've got everything under control, they really don't. And why would they try to blow up an asteroid belt? Were they trying to get things out of the way so they could travel through it easier? Were they trying to create a larger debris field for our enemies to not be able to get through? What was the grand scheme of things for them? Well, there's a quick look at the technical results of Starfish Prime, but what the hell was the point? Why did they have to try to accomplish this? Let's take a look. Point of Starfish Prime, because according to Rogan, when I was listening to his podcast, the point was to blow up the Van Allen space belt, to study the effects of detonating a nuclear weapon in space. That was their goal. Really? Why would they need to know what it would be like to explode something in space? Why would they need to explode anything in space? It's 1962. We hadn't even gone to the moon yet. Well, we had the crashed aircraft from 47, crashed extraterrestrial craft or non-human craft. So you have to say, this has to be because we want to know if our nukes would have any capability in defeating the enemy in space. That's it, bar none. We're not fighting Russia in space, okay? We're not fighting China in space in 1962. We're fighting aliens in 1962. We're looking to see if we have defensive capabilities in 1962. And in 1969, we went to the moon. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, Michael Cooper got out, and they got threatened off the moon, probably by the reptilians, would be my guess. So this Operation Fishbowl is like every other operation. It has a cover story. It says they're out there trying to, utilize it to see if we can protect ourselves from other countries that might be our enemy. But in the grand scheme of things, our enemies did not have space based weapons. Nobody had even probably conceived of a satellite that could shoot lasers out, except until 1980 when Ronald Reagan was like, "Hey, let's create Star Wars, and we'll have satellites that can shoot out lasers." But that was the 80s. This is the early 60s, 1962. We had just barely made it out of the 50s with, like, back when, Michael J. Fox was traveling back in time to see his dad, back when Elvis was just starting out his prime, before the Beatles were even really thinking about being the Beatles. This is like early 60s, and just coming out of the 50s. They had to plan for this for years in advance, at least a couple years in advance. So you're talking about they planned it in the 50s and initiated it in 62. Uh, in a surprising way, they said it disabled satellites. It helped educate scientists of the impact of radiation in space. It offered a terrifying glimpse of the deadly and destructive potential of nuclear weapons, especially when they are detonated high above the Earth. Why in God's green creation would you ever blow up a nuke in space unless it was an absolute necessity? You don't know what the fuck is going to happen. You don't know if it's just going to blow us up or cause a nuclear fallout for the entire fucking planet. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it makes zero sense unless you are so terrified that you have to have all weapons on deck in order to make sure that your species is going to be able to survive. It's still 62, so we're still working on reverse engineering spacecraft. We're trying to figure out weapon systems. The little mini explorer ships that crashed are not motherships. They didn't have massive weaponry to blast anything out of the sky. And even if they did, we probably couldn't figure it out. So all we had was what we already had developed in the 40s was the nuclear weapons. And we probably said, well, goddamn, if there are these little gray aliens and they're telling us, hey, guess what? There's also all these other aliens out there and they have all these other different weapons. We probably got terrified and we probably said we should probably do the best we can to try to protect ourselves. We probably said, hey, first, we want to make sure we have satellites out there. Second, we want to make sure we have the best telescopic equipment so that we can see as far as we possibly can. Try to send Hubble up there as fast as we can, right? We didn't have Hubble even, right, until when we send that up? Hubble sent update. I think it was like the 80s, wasn't it? I want to say 1990. Okay, yep. I remember it going up because I was a kid in school, and yeah, that's wild, man. So we didn't have Hubble. We didn't have great pictures, uh, you know, of deep space until 90. If you want to call them great. And now we have the James Webb Telescope, but we had to start developing weapons technology. We had to start allowing ourselves to have a chance because maybe they found out a little bit of history, a little bit of human history. Now, keep in mind, humans have always been utilized by these aliens and genetically modified and genetically farmer raced and all of that, for the aliens' benefit, whatever it is, whether it's creating hybrids so they can continue their population and their species. Bob Lazar said that we are just containers. So they're clearly just using us for containers, maybe for souls, maybe for soul development, so that they can utilize our souls for whatever purpose, energy purposes or spiritual development or whatever. We really don't know. We just don't know enough yet. And that's the sucky thing is that I think the government knows, and I think that they just don't want to tell us because they don't want to freak us out. There's a show right now called Wayward Pines. It's got Matt Dillon in it. It's pretty interesting. Basically, it's a show about people living in this small town, and outside of the town there's electric fences, and they can't get out, and a lot of the people don't know that. But outside of these electric fences are basically humans' evolution of us turning into monsters, kind of turning into extraterrestrials with like these huge teeth and kind of crazy, predatorial mentality. Basically, they would kill humans if they got out. They had found some sort of genetic mutation in humans early on, and they developed this little town so that humans could survive, and the human population outside continued to develop into like this predatory type state. Very interesting. You almost wonder if that's a possibility with some of the hybrid technology that they're using right now, the hybrids that they're creating. Are they creating some sort of predatorial beings? We know that the reptilians created dinosaurs way back in the day, right? And so if they did that, and the dinosaurs basically roamed the earth and dominated the earth, they were the alphas, that could happen again. So humans, being as diminutive as we are, only 6 feet, would be no match for a 20-foot tall Tyrannosaurus Rex. If those things came back, or they were just dropped off of a ship, and they just wanted to tear through, our Earth, they could do it. They'd do a lot of damage. We'd probably take them out, but they'd do a lot of damage, and then they could just drop off more, right? They could just keep dropping off more. So that's what's interesting about this particular event, is that they started to bomb space way early on. I thought it was crazy that they nuked the moon. What was it? Nuke moon. I think it was like in 2012. And were nukes sent to the moon? They were sent. The Air Force actually developed a top secret plan in 1958 to detonate a nuclear bomb on the moon, but it never came to fruition. But when did it happen? Was it 2009? Is that when it happened? Oh, yeah, the El Cross mission. Okay. Yeah, 2009. Interestingly enough. So, yeah, they even have the target here. So it's 2009. That's a long time ago, man. But we don't have any other missions that have bombed the moon. So why would we continue to do that? It just doesn't make sense. Anyway, think about it for a little bit. Use your, your logical, rational thought processes and think about it. Now, in relationship to the Van Allen radiation belt, they stated that it added electrons, increasing the intensity of the electrons within the natural Van Allen radiation belt by several orders of magnitude. And because of this, it made it basically a stronger radiation belt. The Van Allen radiation belt is a zone of energetically charged particles, most of which originate around solar wind. The Earth has two such belts, and the two main belts of the Earth are a lot closer than Van Allen. Those are like the outer radiation belts. So they say that it's really hard to travel through this area because if you got a bunch of electrons, it's going to screw up a lot of things, right? It's going to screw up your electronics and everything else. So they basically screwed up space. Good job, NASA. Way to fucking go. All right, guys. I'll let you go. I just wanted to bring that to your attention, and then we'll talk a little bit more about another issue coming up here in the next day. So take care of yourselves, physically, spiritually, emotionally. Follow through on your hobbies and your goals and your dreams. And as always, continue to question the universe around you. Until next time, guys, take care. I love you. Please go like, follow, share, subscribe, and Lockdown Universe out. Peace.